Hi, I'm Kaylee, and today I'm going to tell you about some classic books with grief as a main theme. So when I started thinking about this, books with grief as a main theme, I realized that most of the ones I was thinking about didn't necessarily have to do with grieving someone's death. Some of them are, but a lot more of them are about grieving the loss of a relationship. They're about grieving that you and this other person have had some kind of rupture in your relationship to where you don't have that relationship in your life, or that relationship just isn't the same as it used to be. You've lost that closeness to that person that you used to have. So lots of different types of grief that we're going to talk about today. These books are not in any particular order. They're just in the order that I happened to think of them. The first one on my list is Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. At its heart, this book is about family and how devastating it can be when a family member passes. Molly Gibson lives with her father, and when her father decides to remarry, suddenly she has a new stepmother and a new stepsister. And so part of the grief in this book is Molly is grieving the loss of this close relationship that she used to have with her father. It used to be just her and her dad, and now suddenly there's a new woman in his life, and he is a parent to another girl who deserves some of his attention. And so she's, not that Molly is spoiled, but she is used to having all of her dad's attention and love to herself. And so she's sort of adjusting to that, and there's a natural grieving period as she adjusts to her new family. Molly also goes to visit the squire in the county, and she becomes very close with the squire's wife and with his two sons. And there are several deaths in that family. I'm not going to spoil it, but people die, and then Molly is grieving the deaths of those close friends of her family as well. The wonderful thing about this book is how Molly cries and does her grieving, and she goes through the process and she comes out stronger and brighter and happier on the other side. She learns that it's wonderful to celebrate those memories and to celebrate that life and that relationship that you used to have, and then to go on and forge new memories and new relationships, and not to let the past weigh you down, to celebrate that past and to acknowledge it, but not to just wallow in your grief. The next one is about someone who did decide to wallow in their grief. This is The Small House at Allington by Anthony Trollope. This is the story of a very sweet and sensitive girl named Lily. She falls in love with a man, and he is unfaithful to her and leaves her. Basically, she's left jilted, And she grieves the loss of that relationship and wallows in her grief to the point where she really just never gets over it. A lot of people like the reality of her character because sometimes people choose to sit in their grief and just live there. But I did not like that. Some people really like the complexity of her character and how it definitely reflects real life. But for me, I didn't like that. I would certainly not do that. The next one is My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. In this one, a young man, Philip, and his uncle are very close. His uncle is his guardian, and then his uncle dies under very mysterious circumstances. And Philip is dealing with the grief of that, the loss of really his only living family member. And then along comes his uncle's new wife, Rachel. And there's this big mystery. Did she kill off the uncle? Or is it all just an accident? So in the midst of his grief, he also has this mysterious woman who comes into his life. I really liked the way that Philip's grief for his uncle was dealt with and referenced over and over and over through the books. Little things around the house that would remind him of his uncle, or he would have to make some kind of change in the way that he did business with his uncle's estate or something, and he would think of his uncle, many times throughout the book. And I don't like it when someone's grieving for someone, it's like, okay, we have the grieving chapter and now we're done and off we go. Like, this really showed a picture of grieving over a long period of time and remembering the person and gradually being, okay with it and finding peace with it, but never quite forgetting that person. So I really liked the way that this was dealt with in a very real way, where Philip is always remembering his uncle. The next one is Persuasion by Jane Austen. This follows Anne Elliot, who has broken off a romantic relationship with a man, and years later, she is regretting it. And she's basically, I think, been grieving for that lost relationship all of those years. And then she meets the man again, and possibly they might have a second chance. I feel like Anne's grief over that lost romantic relationship is even worse because she was the one who broke it off. She made that decision and she regrets that decision. And I feel like that just puts even more of a painful memory into that grief. And then of course, when she meets him again, then all of these memories start coming back of the way it used to be, and now it's so different, and now, can we even reconnect anymore? Are we totally different people, or is that same old feeling maybe still gonna be there? So it's like meeting him brings up that same old grief, and she's grieving for it again, even as she begins to be hopeful that maybe they could reconnect again. So there's a lot of emotion on top of each other in this book. It is absolutely wonderful. And my last one is a very tragic book called Mill on the Floss by George Eliot. This follows two siblings, Maggie and Tom, who live at the mill. Their father is the miller, and the Floss is the name of the river where the mill is located. Throughout the book, Maggie is grieving the loss of her relationship with her brother Tom. When they were children, they were very close, and they would do everything together and play together, and she was close with her brother, and she loves her brother so much. But as he grows up, he becomes very distant from his family. He doesn't want to be just a poor, tradesman's son, a poor miller's son. He wants to move up in the world and, kind of run with a more elite crowd. And so he basically just cuts himself off from his family. He thinks they're crude and poor, and he looks down on them. And so throughout the book, Maggie is grieving for the loss of that childhood relationship that she had with her brother and seeking for a way to kind of reconnect with her brother. That grief over and wanting to reconnect with her brother is what fuels a lot of the story and what brings the different plot elements kind of together into one collective story. And it's definitely a major motivator in Maggie's life. This is what motivates her decisions, and it's what drives her relationships with other people because she's seeking for this connection that she has lost. So it's really wonderful how that one element of that one relationship just drives the whole story. It's wonderful storytelling, and it's so sad. So don't read this one unless you're ready to cry. And those are some books that deal with different types of grief. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know what is a really wonderful story that you've read about grief. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.